Betsy, do you have a third one?
Yes, I do, and Rika will love this one. The female of the species is obviously the person who carries the child, who bears the child, and in our culture predominantly, but not exclusively, does the child care. And in most single family situations, it is the woman who cares for the child, though I'm glad to see that we're seeing more and more men who are stepping up to that and are very capable in that capacity. But I have a problem with excessively predominant males situations making policy regarding female bodies.
Me too.
Why aren't we having some women in on this? We need to have equal representation, if not more female representation than male in this type of a policy situation. We're the bodies that are being talked about and that are the policies are being made for. We are the ones who should have a huge say in how these policies are
We should
developed.
have the only say.
Here, do you want to?
I appreciate the sensitive way that you raised your question, and I agree with you. I have no problems with women getting involved in public policy, running for office, being elected, and making good decisions. And there are many pro-choice women in Frankfurt, but there are many pro-life women in Frankfurt. And I just wish, as I said earlier, that the pro-life Democrat women would get a chance to vote their perspective on a bill that's debated on the floor, because right now they don't even have a say. It's Greg Stumbo or the party leadership that basically says, you don't get to decide.
Okay, well, I actually agree with the first thing Kent said. That it would be great if more women were in positions of, public office, positions of power. And then the decisions would be more informed by women's experiences. I don't agree with anything he said when he started talking about many pro-choice women in Frankfurt and many pro-life women in Frankfurt. I think those terms have been distorted for the last 42 years by the Right to Life movement. I consider Planned Parenthood the most effective pro-life organization that exists because it provides accurate information, a full range of contraceptive services, and abortions when needed. And all of that combined lowers the abortion rate. So these terms, and it's reflexive. You've been using these words since at least 1989, probably back to 1973, or you're a little older than I am. And they're wrong. They're inaccurate. The Republican Party, the Right to Life movement have never been pro-life. We have. The pro-choice, I don't even use that term myself. Most of my friends do. But I never call myself pro-choice. I'm totally about reducing the abortion rate in the most effective, proven way possible, and that's through the Democratic Party and Planned Parenthood's strategy.
Well, isn't economics come into play at all? Don't economics come into play?
Please
Well, I
elaborate.
don't think it's just Planned Parenthood and just having
Yes. Economic
contraception.
development leads,
I mean, if you
leads
have
women
a
and
job,
empowering
you're not
women.
going to just be
Right.
sitting at home screwing
Yeah,
each
yeah.
other because you have nothing else to do.
Too many women are forced, too many women around the world, including in this country, are forced to have more children than they want, more children than they can afford to raise, and economics is definitely a part of it.
And I mean, and I've got friends too that, I've got a female friend who's got 3 kids. She aborted 2, so she would have had 5, but there were 2 times in her life where that just wasn't gonna work out, and it was mostly economically. Her husband had been in an accident, she was using birth control, but it didn't work.
Right.
I mean, it's ridiculous to be made to give birth to a child that you don't want and give it up.
And so if more women get elected, those considerations will be attended to more, and the true pro-life Americans, Democrats, Planned Parenthood supporters, will gradually win this culture war.
And this will be my final statement. If the absence of a heartbeat indicates death, and that's what the first responders always do, then what does the presence of a heartbeat in the womb indicate? 18 days after conception. If the absence of a brainwave, now the more high-tech, indicates death, and that's within 5 or 6 weeks after conception, what does the presence of a brainwave in the womb indicate? It indicates life in my mind. And I would encourage all Americans, all human beings, to always reach out to the least among us and do our best to strengthen them and help them, whether they're in the womb, whether they're out of the womb and disabled, whether they're aged, rather than somehow coming up with a thought that that young one would be better off dead, or my father's getting old, he'd be better off dead. To me, that's opposite sides of the same coin. And human life has more value than that kind of philosophy. That's my opinion. It doesn't have to be yours.
Can I ask one question? Sure. On that? Well, I mean, if you're in a vegetative state and you're being kept alive by artificial beings, and you can go on for 10, 20, 30 years, that's okay?
I didn't say that.
Well, no, that's the same thing as a baby in the womb.
The baby, there's a difference.
No, that person has a heartbeat and a brain.
May I answer your question?
Sure.
Okay.
Do we need a moderator?
A baby, well, it's interesting, the moderator's on your side, that's kind of interesting. Okay.
Oh, no, I'm moving more.
And that's okay, I don't. A baby in the womb with a heartbeat and a brainwave is starting a whole lifetime.
Yes, so what if this person is 12 years old?
May I finish?
Okay.
It's starting a whole lifetime. And that little tiny fetus, at one point a single cell, will simply be granted nourishment and at some point oxygen. And it will become what you and I are now. Now, when the body is so severely injured, damaged, that it cannot survive, that it cannot live, there's a time to die. And I can't be the judge of that. I would submit, if you said there was a 12-year-old child in that circumstance, I would leave that to the parents of that child, the guardians, the ones who love that child, who brought it into this world and care about it. But also on the other end of life.
And why not the parents of that unborn fetus?
Well, because there is life in that.
There is life in that person.
Let me restate what I said, okay? When the body has been so damaged that it can no longer move forward without artificial.
Same with the fetus. The fetus cannot survive. It's not viable without the mother.
But we're talking about a vegetative state from some kind of...
And I'm trying to equate the two.
But you can't equate the two.
Why?
Because medically they're not the same thing. One is a vegetative state because of an injury or
But when you're saying they both have heartbeats, they both cannot live without anything other than...
No, I'm not pressing the point that they're dependent, because people at the other end of life are dependent, just as a 2-year-old is dependent. A 2-year-old is totally dependent. You cannot leave that 2-year-old without supervision. The focus is not dependent. It's not dependence, because we're all dependent at different points of life at different times.
I'm talking about living with or without artificial means, or without the host,
Well, the artificial means and host are two different things. Artificial is man-made.
Pretty similar.
Host it's very natural. It's not man-made.
But if
You're
you
not
don't-
man-made.
Yeah, I'm man-made. I was made by a man and a woman.
So you're a machine.
No?
Okay, well, we're talking about artificial
You didn't say
machine
artificial.
stuff. Okay, I'll use the word machine if that helps you.
Okay.
All right, does that help clarify?
No.
Okay, no, the reality is I can't clarify for you because you're just set, and that's fine, I'm set.
Right.
And we can respect one another for that.
Okay.
let's leave it at that.
My question is, this debate is about abortion and public policy. And it seems to me that too much of the discussion tonight has been about the pros and cons and the morality of abortion and everything, which is a personal issue, and women's rights, which is a personal issue. My question is, and I heard Jeff's side, and I haven't heard your side, is do you think Planned Parenthood does a good job? And I have a question also, what percentage of Planned Parenthood's efforts are towards education, birth control, and women's services, and as opposed to the percentage of Planned Parenthood's efforts towards abortion itself, because the big public policy is over Planned Parenthood. There's a fight going on in Congress now about funding it. The Republican Congress wants to do away with it due to some heavily edited tapes that have been pretty much bumped by anybody who's watched the whole thing. But
Have you watched the whole thing?
are we going to
Yeah, but
throw
they
out?
weren't even-
Wait a minute.
they
Are we
weren't
going to throw out
even
the baby with
Planned
bathwater here?
But we don't want to throw out any more babies, that's
And you know, they want to defund the entire program over a hot button issue, but I think right now we're finding out this is a very hot button issue, even just inside this room. And yet, the overall needs of women and for reproductive services are incredible in this country, and I don't know if anybody's aware of how poor health care is in this country, due mainly to the fact of the opposition to universal health care. And just where do you stand on that as far as all the health services that Planned Parenthood is providing? It doesn't say here how many abortions they performed. I want to know what the percentage of their business was abortions.
3%.
3%. So you're talking about 97%.
3%.
And the public policy issue of Planned Parenthood, which is the public policy going on right now, we're going to do away with these 97% things over a 3% issue that is basically you have one definition of life, I certainly have another. Doctor, you're a doctor right there, and you have your feelings, and you have your feelings and everything, but in the end, it's the millions of women who are affected by this public policy and are not getting the 800,000 pap tests, the 3 million birth control information, 4 million tests.
I don't have an answer on it, but
Mammograms.
I'm glad you have an opinion. Good to be with you all tonight, I
Oh,
appreciate
you
it.
gotta go?
Yeah, we
Thank you.
passed it.
Ed, I
Thank
want
you,
to
appreciate
say,
it.
I appreciate,
the opportunity.
I appreciate your style of debating.
Thank you.
And I'm glad that we didn't get into any personal attacks against each other.
I don't have anything
No
against you.
fisticuffs.
I don't have anything